David here.
Oh, hi, David. It's Rebecca calling.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. Oh, good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for calling. How's
That's all
things in
right.
Whanganui today?
Oh, pretty good. There's a bit of sun out there, but it's been a little bit overcast, which is good for actually getting some jobs done outside.
Yep,
Otherwise, it's
same.
too
I'm,
unbearable.
I'm in the far north, and yeah, we've had 2 or 3 days of sort of off and on rain,
Yeah.
which hiking the humidity a bit, but not having that blazing direct sun does make it a bit more doable during the day.
Yeah, it gives a bit of a breather. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't
Yeah.
didn't help us with our water tank that popped a big leak on New Year's Eve. So
Oh, no.
we're like
Yeah.
10, 12 days without water now. Oh,
Oh,
except for
what
the
about, can you get the fire service to deliver some?
it'd just run straight out the
Oh,
bottom
because you
again.
need to repair your
Unfortunately,
tank, yeah.
yeah. And the dude that does, he's got he's got a few customers on. We're lucky we get irrigation water where we are. You wouldn't
Yeah.
drink it, but it does mean that we can throw a bucket over ourselves every now and again.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I used to get the water delivered when I lived rural, and we had a big drought in the Hawke's Bay, so we got our water
yep.
from the fire service. But yeah, a hole in the tank won't really and it always happens. Those things always happen at this time of year.
I
My
know.
my
My wife
two-year-old fridge
Mariel and I,
freezer, 2 years old, just
yep.
went on the blink. So trying to get a repair person over Christmas and New Year's is
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's right. Our washing machine and dryer blew up this time last year.
yeah,
It is this time of year. Eh? Oh
yeah.
well. Hey, so you've been busy carrying your message around Whanganui for some time. I can see. I was just having a bit of a look back on Facebook.
Yeah.
My input.
I've been
Yep.
involved, not right at the outset of Voices for Freedom, but when I first found out about them, I did get involved. Um, so my sort of feelings about everything came through to me in September.
Yep.
So my history was that I had been damaged by a pharmaceutical drug. So when the vaccine came about, first I thought this is great, this is what we all need. But I knew that I was going to research it and look into it and wait and see whether there was anyone getting damaged, because that's what had happened to me prior. So I decided to hold back and look at that side of things before I'd go ahead.
Yep.
And then when I did find people that had the jab injuries, and I felt that they were getting dismissed in the healthcare system and not getting acknowledged and not getting help, which was my experience when I was damaged,
Yep.
that was all I needed to decide that it wasn't for me, really, because I felt that if anything did happen to me, I'm a solo mum of only one now, but I've got 3 grown-up kids. And I really feel that without family support around me, if anything happens to me, there's no one to raise my child. So I felt that
Yep.
I weighed up the risk of COVID versus the risk of the vaccine, and decided that I chose COVID, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah. And so,
Tough spot to be put in, in terms of like which way do you jump?
yeah, because my sort of thinking is, for my age and health, there's a 99.7% recovery rate from Delta. And then if I don't have the jab, I'm 100% protected from side effects. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer when I look at those statistics. Obviously, I could be at risk for long COVID, that sort of thing. I've had chronic fatigue after a nasty virus quite a few years ago. So, maybe I am prone to that, but I didn't want to go down the road of pharmaceuticals, when you get damaged by those. For me, it was a fluoroquinolone antibiotic,
Yeah.
particularly nasty. And those in themselves can cause, in some people that have already got a bit of fluoride overload in their body, that can just tip them right over the edge. And I had a toxic brain injury from it, and sort of just got left on my own raising my son, who was 7 years old at the time. And it was an absolute struggle. It was a nightmare, and I thought I'd never want to go through that again. So that I'm very pro-choice because of my own experience, and recognising that everyone's got their own history and their own reasons for making that choice. They should be allowed to have that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would think, I don't know, but I would think having Voices for Freedom as a group that had established itself to provide information, but also provide some solidarity for those that didn't want to get vaxxed, that'd be a pretty affirming thing for you to have, I would think. Is that right?
It's been absolutely one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Because everyone I've met is extremely kind, truly kind, not just team of 5 million kind, and extremely kind, and we are working together with supporting each other with our children, with socialising, with veggie gardening, skill sharing, all kinds of things. So the downside of what, sort of happening in the world, there's also this sort of good humanity that's coming through. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard for me to tell, because I don't know if it's the amount of reportage that's been done or whether it's something particular about Whanganui, but I have seen a lot of media reporting about Voices for Freedom protests in Whanganui.
Yeah.
Have you guys got a particularly strong group there, or is it just like the Whanganui Chronicle just does more reporting?
I actually haven't seen all that's in the Chronicle, because I've actually been interviewed by them, but I didn't actually follow up and see what happened with that. They sort of said that they'd be doing an article at some time in the future, but they didn't know exactly when, so I just left it at that. But I think it's also because we're a small town, so anything that's going on here gets noticed pretty easily and pretty quickly. And maybe it's our presence, maybe it's because there is a very large group of us, but there's only a small group of us that turn up and hold signs every week. There's probably 300, more than 300 now in our Voices for Freedom here.
Wow.
But we have another group as well called United for the Cause, and that's really lovely. That's held at Pakaitori on Saturdays from 11 till 1, and that's where we picnic and we trade goods and things like that. So that's really lovely as well, and that's right after we do the signs. Anyone can go down there. Anyone in the community.
What's
so
that
we're
group
not
called?
United for the Cause.
Right. Yeah.
And sort of overseeing it as a pastor. And so that's sort of the local iwi are part of that. So it's at Pakaitori, which was Motua Garden. So it's sort of a protected area, so we feel very safe down there as well.
Yeah.
And so it's just that's a nice environment. And we're just really working towards growing community, as well as we're a voice. We're a place for people to come. It doesn't matter whether you've had the jab or you haven't had the jab. If you've even had side effects from the jab and you need support, then that's what we're there for as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we get called anti-vaxxers, as though it's a derogatory comment. And anti-vax had a definition in the dictionary, which was actually changed last year, I think, the online dictionary. They changed the definition of it to include or any particular vaccine.
Right.
So it used to be if you were an anti-vaxxer, you were against all vaccines. You didn't want your children to have any of them. All of them are poison. It's all bad. And they actually changed the wording to include or against any particular vaccine so that
Right.
that we fitted the category then of anti-vaxxers. And my sort of view is that the government uses the anti-vax term. They sort of use us for their own objectives. So if they can sort of just paint us in this sort of, Chris Luxon saying we don't agree with the anti-vaxxers' views, I feel that, just trying to paint us in a negative light instead of, most people, if they read the signs that we hold, whether you're jabbed or jabbed free, you'll probably agree with most of what is on our signs that we're holding. The sign I held on Saturday, lockdowns destroy livelihoods. We know that's true because we know that there's 30,000 or whatever it is, small businesses that have closed down. So I would say most of what we're about, a lot of the signs we're holding, that people would agree with what our message is.
And it cropped up because Harete Hapingo came down to visit and posted a photograph of himself down there, which, as you saw, then got taken down.
Yeah.
How does she wind up in a difficult spot there? Because I've worked in small towns. I live in a small town. I live in I live in the far north in the provinces.
Yeah.
And so I see MPs turning up for community events are quite different than they are in a big city. MPs turn up to all sorts of things, but also. I don't know. Communities relate to each other in different ways too, in the provinces. So
yeah, I think she notices what's going on. She said she had seen us holding signs at a local roundabout for a couple of Saturdays, and then hadn't seen us for a while. And then on Saturday, she was on her way to get some croissants from there's a French bakery, I think it is there. And so she decided to take the opportunity to come and speak to us.
Yeah.
And I thanked her for that straight off because no one speaks to us. Apart from that, no one wants our story. Apart from the reporter from the Chronicle, and I said to him, look, I've noticed with the media that there's this sort of slant towards the government's agenda, and I said, and I think that needs to stop, and that this is also our story, what's happening here today, because we had a bit of a sort of a walk around protest when our council decided to lock us out of the library and the swimming pool and the art gallery, that sort of thing. So we went round each venue. Yeah.
So did she just, I don't know, pull up, get out, bail up and say...
She was on foot, actually. She was just walked across the road and she had a chat to us, and then she took some photos. She took some photos and just stayed and chatted for a bit longer, and then went off and got her croissants. She felt she knew what the outcome was going to be of her post.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she knew what it was going to be, but she decided she was going to put it up anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess with our current Labour government, I've lost a lot of trust in our government, because I prefer openness and transparency and actually not cutting any person out of the society, but even if they are a minority, that they matter too. So we get a lot of bullying that we're a minority, so we don't count, we need to be squashed out basically. And I don't think like that. I think even the minorities you know. And tribally, looking back in time, there was always in the tribes, there was always the person who sounded the warning, was the whistleblower. If danger was coming, they had some kind of sixth sense about it. They were that person that alerted the rest of the tribe, got people taking action, that sort of thing. I still think that exists in today's society. So, yeah, I think that there's there's different personalities and different types, and we still all matter whether we're considered a minority or a majority.
But she was pretty happy to just relate to you guys one-to-one.
Yeah.
From the sound of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just because she believes in choice, the freedom of choice, and I guess the freedom in general, like we're called freedom fighters, but that's not a term that I would prefer. I don't prefer that term. I don't actually like it because it's got the terminology of, well, you're fighting for your freedom, but your freedom is already a given. It's your birthright to me. It's not something that should be handed to you by a government who's supposed to work for the people. So I feel that those who are retaining their bodily autonomy actually have more freedom than those who think they have freedom because they've got a vax pass. So I've chosen to retain my freedom by not having this 2 shots for summer. Believe me, I'm having my summer and I didn't need to have 2 shots to have it. I have a mask exemption, so I never wear a mask. I retain as much as my freedom as I can in this current society by actually not letting my body be injected with this jab in order to be told that I'll have more freedom if I do that.
So, what did Hariti want to talk about, or was she just mainly listening?
She listened, and we talked about the reporters in a little bit in Wanganui because there was one that she felt had misportrayed her in the media. So she sort of said to be a little bit wary about him. Because, I've had dealings with reporters in the past, and I know that, things can be sort of aired in a certain light. And sometimes, too, I've found that when I've been to government agencies about problems in society, you get absolutely nowhere. I've worked at a place where there's been absolute horrible animal cruelty, and the MPI's flowing from Hamilton to Wanganui, and they've got a slap on the hand, basically. And I said, well, did you actually go to the sick bay where these birds, the poultry were? And, oh, no, we didn't actually go down there and have a look at them. So I just feel, that when you do go to government agencies and things, I don't think that. So I've been to the media with the council spraying helicopter aerial spraying within 100 metres of housing and a whole lot of people getting sick.
Yep.
And spraying over a large body of water, which is illegal, and all the pungas around the water all dropped dead, the punga trees. That's how much spray they put down there. There were 30-foot young pine trees, 30 foot high, and it killed them.
Sure, that'll take a fair bit of spray.
Exactly. And so when you have an experience like me where you've been to the media about it and you've been to the Horizons Council and the District Council and you get just fobbed off, then you realise you're on your own a bit. That's why I say, not everyone is going to be trusting and compliant with this government. And I'm one of those people that won't be.
And Hariti knew that she was going to get sprung, you were saying. What did she say about that? Or she was going to get some flack?
She just said, I'll probably get roasted for this.
Right.
Yeah, because I've noticed her put little things up on her page. You know, she's a bit different than a lot of the other MPs that I follow.
Yeah, well, because I'd gone through, I'd had a good look through her page today, and I got the same impression that she's a bit different in her approach. You know, it was, some might call it incautious, I guess, the way that she's gone about it. Because some of the posts that she puts up, you're like, oh, that's kind of a line call that you could possibly read both ways. And then there's others where she's jumped in with comments and made some quite direct statements that I don't think that her party would go along with. But I think she'd find herself really at home with those holding the signs at the side of the road.
I think she would.
Um,
I think she
'cause
would. I think she would. I felt that when I met her. I
yeah,
felt that well, she's got a lot of heart, and and yeah, I think that she stands for, you know, she had in the post about our ancestors and what they fought for and freedoms and things, but
mm,
it's a shame that so many are losing that idea around things or losing that concept, whereas she's retaining it. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with it.
yeah. Because some of the comments I'd had, look, she talked about suicide death rates during lockdowns and people who died because of hospital lockdowns.
Yeah, well, that's happening. Yeah.
And had talked about government masking the truth and hiding the truth of this and much else.
Yes.
And I thought, in fact, actually, you made a comment on that, saying there's some very clever people who look into stats and research.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. And so, because I was quite surprised that she'd gone out there with that, because generally that tends to, well, make you a lightning rod for trouble if you're a politician anyway.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't know how long she'll last. And with the National Party, because it's sort of, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you start to open up to people's stories, for example, you know, those that have been jab injured or their business, they've lost their business and that sort of thing, or how people are getting treated with the vax passports, just anything like that. Once you sort of open yourself up to that, it's really, for some people, it's really hard to turn a blind eye, and for other people, it's extremely easy to turn a blind eye or actually even be nasty about it. I get attacked a lot on. I've been attacked, you know, on social media, but also even just holding signs. You know, you get. There's an awful lot of support, and the support's growing too. I've noticed it's really growing substantially. But then you get the odd person that's really horrible. Yeah. So it's kind of that division.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
she's
division's
against
the
the
thing.
division. She's very much against the division of society.
Yeah, surely we all are. I mean, that's the bit that really kicks me in the guts, actually, is the division between people, the extreme polarisation.
Yeah, so, and using fear tactics. So with Voices for Freedom, there is some fear because it's really fearful when you realise what's happening overseas that can potentially start happening in New Zealand. And we are heading that way. Like I see in Austria, the violence on the people over there, and also they're getting enforced vaccinations, so they're getting huge fines starting now in January, every 1 or 2 months, I think, they get fined for being unvaccinated.
Right.
And in Australia, you know, in the Northern Territory, they have locked down the jab-free for all of this weekend just gone and not even able to go to work, or there's only 3 reasons that they could leave their house and they weren't even allowed to leave for an hour's daily exercise.
Yep.
So those kind of measures, but the Premier in the Northern Territory, I watched his live where he announced that was all happening and no valid justification is given. If you want to confine people to that degree, you need to show them your justification for doing so. You need to prove that those jab-free people are actually genuinely a risk and they're the ones out spreading the Delta.
Yeah.
But there is no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. In fact, we're looking at data from other countries. It's actually quite the opposite, because you get the people who have been vaccinated may have no or less symptoms. They still catch it. They still spread it. They don't know that they've got it, and they go out into public. And that's why in New South Wales and Victoria and all that, in the clubs, they've had massive outbreaks amongst the jabbed, because they don't even know they've got it, and they go out and super spread it. Whereas, a jabbed person more likely to have symptoms will stay at home because they're not feeling well. That's my thought anyway. And I'm not a health expert, but that's my analysis.
No, that's cool. I get that. I mean, as a local voter, see, I up here, Matt King was the MP here from 2017 to 2020. And he came very close to staying in, but didn't. And he's taken a really strong COVID questioning line over the last, 12 months particularly.
Yeah.
And I was having a look at his page this morning while thinking about Hardesi Hapango, and I thought he hasn't got a dog show being selected for the National Party again, surely, because the things he's putting out there would make them squirm.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I met a lady actually on Saturday, right after the Harita had come down and spoken to us, and we wound up for the morning. I met a lady and she's quite adamant that Chris Luxon is not genuine at his pro-vaccination stance, but has to be because it suits a purpose of the National Party, of the National Party getting voted in.
Right.
That's what she was adamant about. So she sort of shared a bit of her thoughts or knowledge around that, and it did make me wonder. But who's to say? I mean, he did say that a few years back now. He said that parents on benefits, their children should have to be fully vaccinated or they don't receive their benefit payments, and that it should also extend to working for families.
Right.
Which in my view is the state becoming the parent and having control over those children. Like, it's almost like you're in a privileged position if you have got your own income and you don't rely on the government at all. That puts you in a privileged position of being able to choose for your children, but the moment that you've got any reliance on the government, you lose that.
Right.
So I don't agree with that. But him sort of saying that did make me wonder what his stance would be if National got voted in, how they would carry on with what I call the agenda. This fourth industrial revolution, which is on the Auckland City Council website, which comes through via Klaus Schwab from United Nations.
Yep.
So all this upheaval that's going on around the world is they're all trying to take us all in a certain direction. They're trying to take all of us in a certain direction, and I would say most of us are going to end up not liking it. So I suspect there'll be a tipping point, and that we'll be reading a completely different news story in the next year or two.
Right, yeah.
That's just what I think, but because, there's huge protests going all around the world. Do we see any of that on the mainstream media?
I like to think we do a pretty good job of covering it, actually.
The
We tend to
massive
cover a lot of...
protests with hundreds to hundreds of thousands of people in Europe and Parliament, part of the parliamentary buildings somewhere in Australia getting burnt down, and what's going on with the Aboriginal people over there. I see it all because I'm on the what do you call it, the conspiracy theory app Telegram. So we get belittled for being on Telegram, that it's all conspiracy theories and a load of rubbish, but we're actually seeing stories directly that come to us that are not shown on the mainstream media. So the people are there with the cameras, and there's also, I don't know, you're probably aware that there's other media that started up, like Counterspin Media in New Zealand, for an example.
Yeah. No, I am familiar with those guys.
Yeah, so there's all around the world, there's other media, like there's Real Rukshan in Australia. So he goes out with all his camera gear and his cameramen and all that, and he goes out, and these people go out and they're actually there at the scene and recording people. So we see all of that. We see all of that that's not shown on the mainstream. So we can't have all that hidden to it from us. We see all the ICU nurses speaking out. We see the ambulance officers telling us what's going on. We see the people that are getting put into hospital for different things, what they're seeing when they go into the hospitals.
Yeah, no, I've seen much, if not all, of what you're talking about. Certainly bits of it over time.
Yeah.
Through a lot of those channels that you're talking about. It becomes slightly more complicated. It becomes a complicated thing when we look to report about it, because it comes into, I suppose, what's proportionate is the difficulty that we have, which is this is another this is a whole other issue.
Yeah.
But largely being that it's something that old thing about news where dog biting man isn't news, but man biting dog is. But when it comes to a public health situation, if something happens to, say, 1 out of 10,000 people, does reporting that in the way that you would report dog bite or man bites dog, does reporting that then elevate it to a point where it's going to cause difficulties with the best health advice going ahead?
I know what you mean. They talk about, vaccine hesitancy.
Yeah.
So what I noticed is when I first started getting into all this on social media and all that, comments and posts were getting deleted from, because in Asia they have these high-rise buildings where there's masses of these desks, and they have, a laptop at every desk, and the paid position of these people is to turn up at work there for the day or the night, whatever their shift is, and they sit there and they work for, Facebook and Instagram and all that, and that their job is to go through and fact check and be deleting posts.
Yeah.
So, for example, Jacinda had these 33,000 comments on her post when she said about how she'd got the jab and got a sore arm and what was other people's experience. She got these 33,000 posts, and people were saying, you got your staff to delete all this by the next morning, because people went through and scrolled and recorded the whole thing. And so we had all the evidence of that. But by the morning, I think there was only about 10,000 left comments.
Yeah.
But that's not her staff. She doesn't have enough staff to sit there and do that. That's these people that are working in Asia that are doing that. So so that was happening. And so what I would be posting would get deleted or get a thing put over it so that it was false information or whatever. And it was just, even if you meant anything to do with COVID, it could even be something from the government to do with it, and they would just do that. So they didn't always get it right either. in their minds. But what I've noticed is that now that most of the world has been jabbed, that's loosened up a lot. People are allowed to post more on social media and share more than they could before, and so there's starting to become more is starting to come out of the woodworks that Pfizer can no longer keep it covered up what's actually happened. Like, were you aware of the Pfizer, the court case that has just happened to do with the FDA in America?
Yeah, and the release of documents.
Yeah, the release of the documents. So they can't really, they're not going to be able to sort of keep that from the general public. And also, like in England, it was the Cheltenham Post or something like that it was called. I just saw it this morning. They, it's quite a big sort of a suburb or a township, and they have a little local paper that goes out, and they printed all the statistics of all the deaths and the jab injuries from the different vaccines. They did a whole double-page thing in this paper.
Mm.
So how they got away with doing that, I don't know, because I've had people mention to me here, why can't we pay to run an ad in the paper and we put, some of our voices for freedom or whatever information it may be in there. And I said, you'd never be allowed to do it. You'd never get away with it. They would not accept it. But
well,
now,
we do have different rules for advertising here, and for media actually, in the States too.
yeah, well, this is in the UK.
Oh, in the UK. Right.
Yeah, so this is sort of a first. This is a bit of a first for that happening over there. And so now that this is out in sort of a public mainstream newspaper, I just wonder if we're going to see more of it.
Yeah. Well, I've never felt in the slightest bit restrained or had any restraint placed on me in terms of anything that's been reported since the outset of the pandemic. So, yeah, I suppose were things to change, it would be on the basis of new information coming available.
So how about, because the media has been at some of our protests and things, and they, they'll say, oh, there was 5,000 people and there's 25,000 people. That sort of thing. And one of them recorded, have you heard of Casey Henderson?
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
She was a young Auckland girl, so she's got a very severe jab.
Oh, yeah, no, I do know that, Casey, yeah.
Yeah, and so she was recorded by the, I don't know if it was One News or NZ Herald, someone in Auckland at one of the events there. I watched them actually, I watched someone recording her, and they were inviting the media, come and speak to us, come and talk to us, hear our story, that sort of thing. But anyway, they were recording her, and they were right up there, very present. But I haven't seen any of that on the mainstream media. They're not telling her story. So that's where the vaccine hesitancy and sort of hiding away the victims comes into it. And the media's got a role in that.
Yeah, and with Casey, one of the large difficulties around Casey's case is that all of the medical people that she has seen have ruled out the vaccine, which is why the Give a Little campaign that was set up for it crashed and burned, because for fundraising of that sort, you need to be able to produce evidence that will convince the GoFundMe people, and GoFundMe ran into the same problem that media did, which was that the symptoms that she presented with had been diagnosed by doctors as being psychosomatic or a psychological response to the pressure that she was under in the lead up to getting jabbed and then afterwards.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe, because I'm on the COVID vaccine injuries page on Telegram, So I see all the videos and the just the screenshots or images of lots of people who've been injured all around the world.
Yeah,
And I have seen that many people who present exactly like Casey. There are so many of them.
yeah, yeah,
So the medical professionals can say that, just like they would deny that the fluoroquinolone antibiotics damaged me, even though there are thousands upon thousands of people around the world with the same damage that I had, and they did not put all of that on their printouts that go with the medication. But now, because so many have had that damage, they've actually had to put it on their packet information about what can happen to you and how you can get a toxic brain injury like psychosis and stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they've had to include all that, but I got denied it. I was denied it. So do you see what I'm saying about the trust issues and the
Oh,
medical?
and I absolutely get that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do. I do
yeah.
completely get that.
So the
And
medical
if
professionals, they're very reluctant to acknowledge that that things that are happening with people are from the jab. They don't want to report to the MedSafe, and they will try and put it down to other things. I know people that's happened to, so it's
yeah,
happening an awful lot.
but then you get things like the 17-year-old that died of Uruguay, and her death. There was a lot of pressure to tie that to the vax in the first couple of weeks after her death, which subsequently was shown not to have been vax related.
No, but you
Um,
see, it was blood
but
clots.
yeah, but with that particular case, if we had reported that as being something that was related to the vaccine, and then the consequence of that was creating a wave of vaccine hesitancy among people,
Yeah.
and then if COVID had broken out, then I wind up being a journalist. If it was me that wrote that, working for a newspaper that
Yeah.
has killed its readers.
Yeah, so if it was proven, the doctor said yes, this was from the jab, would you have reported it?
Yeah, in the same way that we did with the young man
Rory,
that
yeah.
died of myocarditis
Myocarditis, yeah.
down in Dunedin. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is the thing that I was saying earlier, that I've never come under any pressure to report anything in any particular way throughout this whole event, and neither of any of my colleagues. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel that if the medical profession was able to be more transparent and more honest and consider the health of these people, before they got the jab and after, like that sort of thing, like that, maybe that would be reflected more in the media. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's a young lady in Rotorua. She's got two little kids, and she got terrible myocarditis.
Oh, yeah.
And when she went into Rotorua Hospital, there were 6 other people on a designated ward. She reckons it was designated for jab injured. And those 6 people had the same symptoms as her. And this is in one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they've acknowledged that it's due to the jab. So there's plenty around where it has been acknowledged, and then there's an awful lot where it hasn't. And yet everyone's just told that it's safe and effective.
Yeah. In those cases where it is difficult when you cannot tie it directly to something, where it may be something else, or even if it's likely to be something else, which is why you have that, I suppose, safety net of process, the coronial inquiries, the autopsies, which all take time to work through. And
Yeah.
one of the things that there's not a huge amount of enthusiasm for anywhere at the moment because of how quickly the pandemic moves is time. There's not a great deal of enthusiasm for tolerance for taking time.
So as far as, it being a pandemic, um, it has a very low death rate. It has a very low death rate. The Spanish flu was something like, I think, 5.7 or 5.9% of the population died from the Spanish flu, and COVID, we're sitting at something like 0.006%.
Yep, yep.
It's really not that. It's really not that lethal. I get what they're saying about overloading the healthcare system and that sort of thing. I get that, but there also hasn't been money put into really the resources put into ICU and ICU nurses, and actually the opposite, where medical staff are losing their jobs. But I think that the recovery rates are so high amongst people that are healthy and not terribly aged. It's all being, to me, nonsensical.
Yeah, it's quite interesting looking at countries like, it's a bit of an extreme example, but Yemen, for example, where they make a third world country look flash, and the death and infection rates there give an idea of what it looks like if you do nothing. And which is one of the, there's a couple of interesting things around the projections or the modelling that gets done. One of those things being that generally I think it's quite badly reported, because modelling tends to happen on a bell curve where you get the highest probability of an outcome somewhere in the middle. And if the extremes get reported, then that's quite unhelpful because it just looks ludicrous. The other thing that part of the modelling is that bell curve operates on the if you do absolutely nothing versus if you do absolutely everything. And doing nothing is not an option that the modern Western world is geared up for. So you're not going to wind up with a high death rate if you have lockdowns and if you have mask wearing and if you have vaccination and so on. Whereas if you don't do those things, the outcome's quite different.
Well, I've seen the countries, data showing that the countries with the lowest vaccination rates are actually doing the best at this point in time.
Yeah. Sweden's one that gets
there's a few some places in Africa, and I've got some charts on my phone that I actually just saw yesterday, and they show that all the Commonwealth countries with the high vaccination rates have got the skyrocketing cases, and the others are all doing much better.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with Africa without having a proper health infrastructure there is that you don't wind up with big numbers of vulnerable populations because they're already dead. And you do start looking at...
Well, they don't have, probably some of these places don't have our Western diet either. Because diet is a big contributor to a poor outcome with COVID.
Yeah, sure is. The obesity rates, having all that weight on your chest doesn't help you breathe when you're struggling to do it anyway.
And these, so, internally, with the obesity, and having diabetes and that sort of thing is probably the worst outcome. Quite a lot of these countries too are doing early treatment.
Yep.
So I see, look at the different countries and the early treatments that have been used, and there's a doctor, Dr. Chetty, I think it is, he's South African, he's treated, I don't know how many now, 8 or 9,000 COVID positive patients,
Right.
and he's had 0 deaths and 1 hospitalisation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's just with early treatment. So, yeah, I mean that doesn't happen either. There's no, with this government, there's no talk of actual health. We've had 2 years. Imagine 2 years of encouraging the community to get healthy.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Instead of living in
Yeah.
fear behind the mask, because I mean the mask is a whole nother story in itself, because the mask, that germ-ridden thing that you're breathing in all these germs because it gets touched all the time, people reusing them and wearing them around their chin and all that sort of thing. The masks are, I don't think the masks are a good idea at all. And as well as, hypoxia, like when I tried wearing one the few times at the beginning, I felt quite oxygen starved. Yeah, so, but the fear thing, like fear actually weakens the immunity. So I feel that the way that the government's gone about this has actually lowered the overall immunity of the population by this. There are some really scared people around.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Like that
Yeah.
woman who put her son in the boot of her car because she thought he was COVID positive. So she drove him to the testing station in the boot of a sedan, not a station wagon, because she didn't want to be in the car with him.
Yep.
That's how much fear there is. And also, then there's also vaccinating children who are at virtually 0 risk from COVID. And I don't believe in vaccinating children to protect people that the majority of whom have made poor lifestyle choices. The ones that are at higher risk,
Yeah. Although it then becomes somewhat problematic deciding that you'd let those people die because of choices that they made previously.
No, but I wouldn't risk the children because there's no long-term studies on this this jab. So you're risking the children, and there are children between the ages of 5 and 11 that are going to be in New Zealand that are going to be injured, and some that will die from this jab. It's already happening overseas that children are being injured, and some children have died. So the chances of it happening here are pretty high. Whereas these healthy children wouldn't die from COVID. So there's that part of it. And like I say, there's no long-term studies. Children are too vulnerable when they're developing to be putting something so unknown into them.
Time will tell.
Sadly, it
I
will.
think. Yeah.
Because
one way or the other.
Yeah, like the Voices for Freedom will obviously put their voice out there about that, but it's going to happen no matter what. They're going to roll that. I mean, they're rolling that out to the young ones, and then it'll be 6 months to 5 years, so they can get it on the childhood vaccinations.
Right.
So all the children will have to be vaccinated, because I think ultimately this government would love to mandate vaccinations for children to attend education.
Yeah, I can't see how they do that.
So I feel that they may be wanting to include it into the vaccinations for little ones, so it just becomes part of their vaccinations that they get before they, start daycare and kindy and that sort of thing. How our kids already have, MMR and all those vaccinations they have leading up to starting school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Getting your vax register sorted, including the Pfizer jab.
Yeah, the Pfizer jab.
Or whatever might be around.
I mean, every single pandemic in history has come to an end, so I don't see why this one wouldn't come to an end.
Well, hopefully Omicron will help get us there.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for, that it's actually a gift from God, so to speak, and not another sort of a Wuhan China virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that actually Omicron will get us there and give herd immunity and hopefully save a lot of people from going out and having boosters. Yeah, so hopefully that'll be the end of it. I mean, Pfizer, they've sort of got their own checkered past.
Rebecca, I've appreciated the chat and thank you for that. But I better get on with
with your
chasing people around for interviews.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask? I did see on one of your posts that Lee's not your surname.
Yeah, it's not my surname.
Am I able to get your surname for the piece that I'm doing?
Oh yeah, it's Briggs. Briggs.
Yeah, cool. And it's Rebecca. That's right.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. So you are going to write a piece.
Yeah. Well, I was really interested in knowing how Hareti Hapango sort of came to be with you guys on Saturday, and where her interest was at. And it's interesting too to see what it's going to be politically for her too, because I could see from the comments that she's made on previous posts, not the actual posts themselves, but some of the comments she's made in the comment thread. That she does have some pretty fiercely held views on this, and those views would be, I would think, politically difficult for the National Party to align themselves with. So it's just interesting to think of what that might mean for her down the track.
Yeah. What about Simon O'Connor? He's a little bit along those lines as well.
Yeah, well, and it's funny you mention actually, because I had looked at O'Connor's posts back in March or April last year. I just had a fresh look at those, and it's definitely one of those places on Facebook where those that don't follow the government line on things do feel free to go and cut loose. And there's a couple of other national MPs that are along the same lines, and I kind of get it from dealing with them over decades and interviewing masses of MPs from either side of the house, that a lot of the Nats are very much aligned to freedom of choice, make your own personal decisions, and don't let anybody climb up on you because of that.
Yeah.
And taking a public health approach where it becomes less about the individual and more about the collective, or what's assumed to be the collective good, that would really run against the grain for a lot of them.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. But I think it needs to be proven that it's better for, the public health perspective, because where Herald, I'm not sure if you pronounce your name like that, where she's coming from is to look at all the other fallout from the decisions that the Labour government's made.
Yeah.
Because there's an awful lot of damage. There's a lot of damage with people living in fear. So there's your health, and then there's, the suicide rates should be looked at. But as far as I understand, there's a big sort of a waiting list, so to speak, at the not the autopsies, but the
Coronial inquiries.
coroner's
Yeah.
reports. Yeah, so there's a big
Yep.
backlog.
Yep.
There's a big backlog there, and so there's that, and then there's acknowledging, the jab injured and how extensive that actually is, needs to be looked into, and the job losses, what the flow-on effect is of that, because, when you've got parents in a household and one or both parents has lost their job or their long-term career or their income, the flow-on effect that actually has on the whole family in the household. So the stress
Yep.
levels, the depression, the effect, the effect it has on the children in the house. So there's all that. I mean, for myself, I am fearful of how things will go and how enforced this jab thing will become. What will they, even I'm a renter, will they require that people who are renting have to be jabbed? How far is this going to go? Can my son finish his schooling? There's no way he's getting it. He's just turned 15. He's very fit, high risk for myocarditis. And he cannot go on and do tertiary education because you have to be jabbed.
Yes.
You can't go to university. At this point in time, he can't even sit his driver's license. So these kids, if they don't buy into this passport system, they are cut out of the society. So kids are losing interest in NCEA because all their life they wanted to be a vet. And then they've realised, what's the point of getting NCEA? I can't go and study to be a vet.
Yeah.
So it's all that kind of stuff that I'm talking about, like that needs to be taken into account, that ripple-on effect of what's truly going on for these people. I think it should be about the people first, not just this direction that we're all getting pushed in. I think that's where Hariti seems to come from for me. She seems to be about the people and the whenua, the land.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to scoot. Hey, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah,
Thanks
I probably
a lot.
talked a lot. You're the first reporter that's actually the first person that's come up and spoken to us. We can't get the council or anyone here to talk to us, so.
No, that's all good. I always appreciate a chat. I'm always keen to hear where people are coming from.
Yeah. That's really awesome to know. Yep.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
You take care.
Yeah, have a great week. Okay.
Bye.